Now, before beginning any real work within Studio One, it's important to take a look at some of the important preferences that are within the options menu and getting these set up properly before you end up creating a lot of songs and end up with issues on your hand, not being able to locate your songs or samples or files. And you could just save yourself a lot of headaches if you go ahead and take care of this in the beginning. Now, in order to access that, we can come to Studio One as we've seen and access the options here, or Control, on the PC, Command, on the Mac. Now we are taken to the General tab, and let's just go ahead and start here. Now we can see we have the option to choose what Studio One does when it starts. At the moment it's set to do nothing, so you'll be taken to the start page, but you can have it open the last song or project, a default song or project maybe that you've created, or create an entirely new song. We have the option to enable high DPI mode, as well as choosing the language and checking for updates. Next we have appearance, which we'll go into in a later section. We have keyboard and shortcuts, and a network tab. Next in line at the top we have locations, and this is a very important area to pay attention to. So right now we have user data location, which is where all of your songs, mastering projects, and any presets that you create within your songs will be stored at. So we can see this is the file path for my Studio One folder. And if I come to my Explorer, we can see that this is the file path, and here is the Studio One folder. If I double click on that, we can see there are the presets, macros, any macros that I create, our demos and tutorials, projects, and so on. So just know that all of your data is going to be going to this one particular location, and you can click on the ellipsis here to choose a new one if you'd like. We then have autosave documents, which is going to be selected by default. Then we have an important area asked to copy external files when saving a song. By default, this is not going to be checked, but if you are working on songs and you'd like for any third-party samples or recorded audio that was done outside of the song, be sure that you check this box so that when you save your song and before closing, Studio One will ask you if you would like to make an extra copy of all of those samples and contain them within your song folder. Next, we have a File Types tab, and this is going to list all of the supported file extensions. These are shown here, and they are the only types of files which will be shown within the browser of our song page. And you can actually come down to the bottom and click the Add button to add additional file extensions. We then have our sound sets, which are the proprietary sound sets that are downloaded from your Presonus account. And you'll want to take note of this location here because this is where everything will be installed to. We can click on the ellipsis and change to a new location. And we can also have our sound sets stored in multiple locations here. We can see I've got two separate ones. If we come down to the bottom, we have an add where we can click to add additional locations, or we can click the remove after highlighting a location to take it out. We next have instrument library, and this is our third-party sound sets that you may have that utilize cross-platform library formats, including Giga, EXS, older contact files, and some sound font formats. And these compatible files will then be available for use in Presence XT and show within its presets drop-down menu. And then finally, we have our VST plugins. Right now I have one location, and just keep in mind that Studio One is a 64-bit program, so it will not by default run any 32-bit plugins. Now you can get a third-party application that's going to kind of wrap those in a shell so that they work with Studio One. A couple that come to mind are JBridge and 32 Lives, but keep in mind again that these are third-party and you may potentially run into some instability issues. It all depends on the plugin, so use those at your own discretion. And then moving on, we have audio setup, which we've already covered, as well as the external devices, which we have also covered in an earlier section. So then we are left with advanced. And within the advanced menu, we have a selection of different tabs for adjusting different functions that are going to be within Studio One. So we start on the editing tab where we can control how editing is going to function. We have an automation, audio, MIDI, some settings for the mix console, and then a services tab, which is going to allow you access to some more advanced settings within the system. And Studio One does give you a little warning here to be careful with making any adjustments. So these are some of the areas that you'll want to take some time to become familiar with and get these set up how you would like. And the last thing that I would like to cover is, I'll cancel out of this options menu. I'll come up to the Studio One and Studio One installation. Just note that if you have not yet downloaded your sound sets from your PreSonus account, or your documentation, your help files, and the Studio One demos and tutorials, just know that you can access all of these here, and just by simply clicking on the check boxes here, you can then install any missing content that you may need. Just pay attention up top here. We have install from. You can choose to download from your PreSonus account, or you can select a particular file location. And then you'll also want to pay attention to the install to location, which we set up in our options menu, but we can choose a different location here. These are the two that I had that we saw just a moment ago within the options menu. Now at the bottom, you're going to be given information about the space that will be required, the space that's available, and we also have a check for available downloads, kind of a catch-all that we can click here and hopefully get all of the content that we may be missing. And these are just a few of the areas that you'll want to take a look at within the options menu to get everything set up properly before you get heavy into working on creating music or mixing within Studio One.